Efteling is a world-famous theme park located in Kaatsheuvel, Netherlands. It's one of the few parks I've been to that combine roller coasters and dark rides pretty much evenly, and it's for that reason that it's easily one of my favorite parks in Europe. But this isn't a park review, this is a ranking of my 10 favorite rides I experienced at Efteling. Now normally, I'd only be ranking the coasters at a park to fit with the series I've been doing for all parks I've visited in Europe. However, Efteling is so much more than just the coasters, and many of their dark rides are some of my personal favorite rides in the park. So I'm going to be merging them together and creating a general ranking of the best Efteling rides. In addition to having experienced each of Efteling's 6 roller coasters, I'd also like to think I rode all of their best dark rides. I feel pretty qualified to make a video like this, which is not a common theme, like I'm still not sure what I want to do with my Europa Park countdown. But staying on topic, here's my personal top 10 favorite rides at Efteling. Starting off this list at number 10 is Max and Moritz. This dueling powered coaster by Mach Rides is a really well done family coaster. You have the choice of experiencing the blue or green track, which means yes, this is 2 credits for my fellow coaster enthusiasts. Throughout the layout, there's many points of interaction with the other train, in addition to onboard audio that increases in tempo as you build up speed. It's definitely a tamer ride than the other coasters on this list, but still one that I thoroughly enjoyed. Number 9 is Python, the park's oldest operating roller coaster, opened in 1981, and it's a really fascinating ride. At first glance, all this thing looks like is a classic Vekoma looping coaster with the 2 loops and 2 corkscrews. And for a while, that was exactly correct, but in the 2018 season, Belgian company CSM retracked the entire coaster and new Vekoma trains with vest restraints were introduced to the ride. Not only do the restraints make it impossible to get headbanging on this thing, but honestly, they're barely necessarily due to the track work. Python is absolutely one of the smoothest thrill coasters I've ever ridden, which I just couldn't believe since this used to be an old Vekoma coaster. It's still a short layout for sure, but I found it very enjoyable due to the renovations they had recently done. Number 8, Volta. Our first non-coaster attraction to make this list was actually my first Vekoma madhouse I'd ever ridden. Now first of all, the architecture of the building is incredible. It's something I wouldn't expect from Efteling, but still something I wanted to point out. There's also a pre-show for this thing, and it's all in Dutch, so I have no idea what's going on. Then you sit in a theater-like setup and the ride starts screwing with your sense of direction. The point of a madhouse is to give you the illusion that you're upside down when you really aren't, and let me say, it is totally convincing. The theming was also exceptional, like I'm not sure if that's the norm with madhouses, but the lighting and music and everything was incredible. I wish I could have placed Volta higher, but there's tough competition up on this list. Number 7, Vogel Rok. If you happen to see a giant building with a bird in front of it, walk towards it. That is a coaster. An indoor roller coaster to be more specific, and it is a spectacular family ride. I found it to ride similar to something like Space Mountain at Disneyland because it was smooth and kept a really good pace throughout the layout. My favorite part is when you actually go through the mouth of this bird and it sort of comes out of nowhere. Also, the entire ride is synced up to onboard audio because this is Efteling, and yeah, that only made Vogel Rok even better than it already was. I don't know what I was expecting going in, but certainly this coaster exceeded expectations. Number 6, Vliegende Hollander. Otherwise known as the Flying Dutchman in English, this Kumbak water coaster, which is the only one of its kind in the world may I add, is easily the best water coaster I've ever ridden. The level of theming genuinely blew my mind. I was not expecting it. The entire station gives Pirates of the Caribbean vibes right off the bat with the music score and architecture, along with the vehicle that's this big boat with a gargoyle on the front or something. The technology of this ride is genius as well because you have the track that's actually underneath the surface of the water, so when you're in these sections, you're mind blown at the fact that you're actually navigating like a set layout. The dark ride part before the roller coaster section is absolutely superb. I won't spoil it for any of you if you haven't ridden it, but it's amazing. My only gripe with this attraction is that the coaster portion is very tame and slow, but at least it's smooth, so whatever, you win some, you lose some. But overall, this is something you should definitely prioritize when you visit Efteling because it is an awesome ride. Number 5, Droomvlucht. Even though it's been many months since I've been to this park, I still have no idea what happened on this thing. This is one of those rare suspended dark rides that take you through what is described as a dream world of forests, castles, fairies, and trolls. This explains the name of the ride that literally translates to dream flight in English. The entire experience is so beautiful and so relaxing, from the music to the visuals and the darkness. There was so much I loved about this ride. And funny thing is, it wasn't until I got to Efteling that I even had this thing on my radar because a friend who had recently visited the park recommended that I ride it. I would have never experienced it if it weren't for the suggestion because I didn't even know this thing existed until I got here. But man, am I glad I did because this is a must for dark ride fans. Number 4, Fata Morgana. Another amazing dark ride that you should do at Efteling is a combination boat ride that opened in 1986. This is definitely one of the park's classics. But even to today's standards, it holds up because of the sheer amount of animatronics is insane. In that sense, it also reminds me of Pirates of the Caribbean, just in a very different way from Vliegende Hollander. The attraction is based on 1001 Arabian Nights, which from what I understand is a collection of Middle Eastern folk tales compiled during the Islamic Golden Age. There's a lot going on this thing, so I wasn't really able to follow a plot line if there is one, but I mean still, this is an awesome ride. The physical sets were awesome, not to mention the animatronic at the end is probably one of the biggest animatronics I've ever seen in my life. That was a crazy end to the experience. Number 3, Baron 1898. Arguably the park's most thrilling roller coaster is a Bolliger and Mabyard dive coaster that opened in 2015. Of all the dive machines I've ridden, Baron 1898 may not have the most impressive layout, but it is easily the most well-themed. You'll notice the lift structure resembles that of a mine shaft, which fits the story of this haunted mine that all miners who search for gold would flee for some mysterious reason. Guests, aka riders of the attraction, are invited to have a look into the mine themselves, which is exactly what happens when you drop underground into a pitch-dark tunnel. The ride's pre-shows go further into depth as well, which are absolutely spectacular, may I add. Baron's layout is definitely one of the shortest I've experienced on a dive coaster, but the combination of elements is not half bad and certainly is a step above what I experienced on Krake at Heide Park in Germany. So personally, I had very few complaints for this attraction. I was just so taken back by the theming. Because of that, I'm often going back and forth on whether this is my favorite coaster at Efteling, but for now, I think I'll give that honor to number 2, Joris and de Draak. While the level of theming isn't anywhere close to that of Baron 1898, the layout carries this thing well into the top 3. Joris and de Draak is based on the legend of St. George, or George and the Dragon. You've got two sides, fire and water, and unfortunately only fire was operating at the time of my visit, meaning the racing aspect was not in use. I hear the dueling part of this coaster makes it all the more exciting, but the layout and forces surprised me so much that I really couldn't focus on what I was missing out on. I'd expected this thing to be more of a family thrill coaster, but it's easily more intense than Lightning Racer at Hershey Park, which is the only other dueling GCI ever built, and therefore the only other ride out there I had to compare this to. This coaster had terrific pacing, rapid transitions, weird track elements like these outer banks, and plenty of airtime to enjoy. I only had the time to get one ride on it, but judging by the one ride I got, this thing is a gem. And that leaves only one possible ride that I could put at my number 1 spot, and it's not actually a roller coaster, it is a dark ride, and it's called Symbolica. At a cost of 35 million euros, Symbolica is the most expensive attraction ever built by Efteling, which is pretty remarkable for an independently owned theme park. This thing uses a trackless dark ride system, which for those of you who don't know is my favorite kind of dark ride out there. Symbolica solidifies this opinion of mine because this ride is amazing. It points you at some incredible animatronics and physical sets that accumulate a beautiful ride experience. What impressed me the most about this thing is I had no idea what the storyline was and still thought the attention to detail was incredible enough to stand on its own. Get this, every vehicle you board has a different color associated with it, and each of these colors resembles a different sequence of the ride where you'll be taken into different rooms you hadn't seen before. They did not need to take that extra step to include something like this, but they did, and it makes the ride even more unique than it already is. Symbolica is without question one of the most elaborately themed attractions I've ever ridden. It's my favorite dark ride in Europe, for sure. But is it one of my favorite dark rides, period? Yeah, I think it is actually. Symbolica amazed me. This was by far the attraction I rode the most amount of times when I visited Efteling. Just a heads up, look up for the single rider line if you don't like waiting in lines. You will not have to wait in anything. Anyways, that's going to do it for my top 10 favorite rides at Efteling. There's many more things to do and see at this park, including the incredible fairy tale forest, but these were some of my favorite rides and experiences. There's no doubt in my mind that this is one of the best theme parks in Europe, so if you're touring the continent for parks, stop by this place. I don't think you'll regret it. I mean, I'm already looking forward to the day I get to return to Efteling. If you enjoyed the list, feel free to give me a like and subscribe, as it really helps me and the channel out. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye guys.